I was shaking so badly that I almost dropped the papers from my trembling hands. My breath caught in my throat as my eyes scanned the words again and again, hoping I had misread them. But there it was, cold, clinical, undeniable. The child you raised for over 40 years is not biologically yours. DNA result, negative match. The room around me blurred. My heart pounded so loudly in my ears that I could barely hear my own sobs. All the memories, her first steps, her first words, the nights I stayed awake holding her feverish body, the sacrifices I made, everything flashed before me like a cruel movie. How could this be? As I fell to my knees, the paper crumpled in my hand, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was her, calling me as she always did. I stared at her name on the screen, tears streaming down my face. Should I pick it up? Should I tell her what I had just found out? I swallowed hard, my mind racing with confusion and anger. This wasn't just a mistake. Someone had done this. Someone had switched my baby at birth. And I knew exactly who had the access to do it. The person I trusted the most. I gripped the counter, forcing myself to stand. The memories of that day, her birth, came flooding back. There was only one person who was with me every step of the way. The nurse who was more like a sister to me than my own family. The woman I confided in during my hardest labor pains. The woman I trusted to hold my newborn first. Linda. My best friend. Why would she do this to me? As the realization hit me like a truck, my chest tightened with a mix of betrayal and rage. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to gather proof first. I couldn't accuse someone I loved like a sister without evidence. But the DNA result was enough to set my world spinning. I sat down, clutching the paper to my chest. My thoughts screamed, if my daughter isn't mine, then where is my real child? Who raised her? And why would Linda do something so unthinkable? The questions burned like fire in my heart. But as I sat there, trembling, the front door creaked open. Mom! Her voice echoed softly. I froze. She was here. The daughter I raised, who suddenly felt like a stranger, was standing right outside my kitchen. How was I supposed to look at her now? My heart pounded as I slowly turned to face her, wiping the tears from my eyes. She walked in with her usual bright smile, holding a bouquet of flowers, completely unaware that the world as I knew it had just shattered. She hugged me tight, and I felt myself breaking inside. I had to pretend. For now. But how long could I keep this secret? I opened my mouth to speak, but the words got stuck in my throat. She pulled away, looking at me with concern. Mom, are you okay? You look pale. I forced a shaky smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired. She frowned, placing the flowers on the table. You've been crying. What happened? I wanted to tell her everything, but if I did, everything would fall apart. So I lied. I'm fine, honey. Really? She didn't look convinced, but she let it go, for now. As she chatted about her day, I stared at her face, every detail both familiar and foreign. Whose child are you? I thought. And where is mine? My hands curled into fists. I couldn't let Linda get away with this. I needed answers. And I was going to get them, no matter what it took. That night, as I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a silent vow. I would uncover the truth. I would find my real daughter. And I would make Linda confess to what she did to me. I picked up my phone and scrolled through old contacts. Her name was still there. I hadn't called her in years. With trembling fingers, I dialed her number. It rang twice before she answered. Hello? Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I took a deep breath. Linda, we need to talk. There was a pause on the other end. Then, she said something that made my blood run cold. I was wondering when you'd find out. My heart stopped. What did she mean by that? Before I could ask, she hung up. My hands shook as I stared at the phone. She knew. She had been waiting for this moment. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with a plan that started over 40 years ago. And now, I was stepping into a dangerous game where the stakes were everything I ever loved. I barely slept that night. My heart wouldn't stop pounding as Linda's words echoed in my mind. I was wondering when you'd find out. That wasn't the voice of someone innocent. That was the voice of someone who knew exactly what she had done. By sunrise, I was pacing my kitchen, clutching my cup of coffee so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every shadow felt suspicious. My head spun with questions. Why did she do it? Was it for money? Was it revenge? Or was it something even worse? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. But as I was about to call her back, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I opened it. If you want to know the truth, meet me at the old church on Pine Street. Alone. 6 p.m. Don't bring her. No name, no explanation. Just those words. My stomach twisted into knots. Pine Street's old church had been abandoned for years. Why there? And why alone? Still, I knew I had no choice. I spent the day pretending to be normal, pretending that my world wasn't falling apart. My daughter, well, the girl I thought was my daughter, stayed with me for breakfast, chatting about work. I smiled and nodded, but inside I was screaming. When she left, I sat by the window, watching her drive away, and whispered to myself, "Who are you, really?" The hours crawled by. When the clock finally struck 5:30, I grabbed my coat and keys. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just drove. The sky was darkening when I pulled up to the church. The building stood there, half collapsed, with vines climbing its walls and broken windows staring like empty eyes. My heart pounded as I stepped out of the car. I pushed open the heavy wooden door, its rusty hinges screaming in protest. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Moonlight filtered through the cracks, casting eerie shadows on the floor. "Linda!" I called out, my voice trembling. For a moment, there was silence. Then, footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall. She emerged from the darkness, looking older than I remembered, with her blonde hair streaked with gray. But her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, hadn't changed. "You came," she said softly, almost like a whisper. I swallowed hard. "What did you do to me, Linda? Why did you switch my baby?" She smirked, leaning against a pew. "You still don't understand, do you?" My hands balled into fists. "Then make me understand." For a moment, she said nothing, just studied me with that unsettling calmness. Then she laughed, quiet at first, then louder, echoing through the empty church. "You were so naive," she said. "You trusted me with everything. You handed me your child like she was a gift." My heart clenched. "Why? Why would you do this to me?" Her eyes narrowed. "Because that child was supposed to be mine." The words slammed into me like a punch. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice cracking. Linda stepped closer, her voice cold. "I couldn't have children, remember? My husband left me because of it. And then I watched you, my so-called best friend, have the perfect pregnancy. The perfect baby. Do you know what that felt like?" I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "So you stole her? You stole my baby because you were jealous." She smiled bitterly. "Not just jealousy. Revenge. You had everything and I had nothing. So I took what should have been mine." My knees went weak, and I had to grip the pew to keep from falling. Where is my real child, Linda? I whispered, my voice breaking. For the first time, her smile faded. She looked away. She's alive. My breath caught. Where is she? Linda's voice lowered. You've seen her. Many times. But you never knew. My heart felt like it was about to explode. Who is she, Linda? Tell me. She leaned closer, her voice like ice. You'll have to find her yourself. But I'll give you a clue, she's closer than you think. Before I could ask anything else, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. Linda! I screamed, chasing after her, but when I reached the door, she was gone. I stumbled back to my car, shaking so hard I could barely hold the steering wheel. My mind was spinning with her words. Closer than you think. Who could it be? As I drove home, headlights suddenly appeared behind me. They were too close. Following me. I sped up, but so did they. My heart raced as I swerved into my driveway and jumped out of the car. The other vehicle stopped at the end of the street, its lights glaring like eyes, watching me. I ran inside and locked the door. When I looked out again, the car was gone. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Someone else was involved. Someone who didn't want me to uncover the truth. And as I stood there in the dark, clutching my phone, a notification popped up on my screen. It was a photo. No message, just a photo. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a picture of my real daughter, sleeping in a bed I didn't recognize. I dropped my phone, my knees giving out as I collapsed onto the floor. The photo burned into my mind, the face of a young woman, peaceful in her sleep, with features that looked eerily familiar. Her nose, her smile, they were mine. My chest heaved as panic clawed at me. Who took this picture? Where was she? And why send it to me now? I scrambled to pick up the phone, my trembling fingers zooming in on every detail of the photo. The bed was unfamiliar, the room dimly lit with a single lamp. On the nightstand, there was a glass of water and a photo frame turned face down. I tried to focus on the wallpaper. It was floral, faded, almost vintage. None of it gave me an answer. A notification popped up again. Unknown number. You have 48 hours to stop digging, or she disappears. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was a threat. I sat there, shaking, staring at the screen until my daughter, the one I raised, walked into the room. Mom? What's going on? Why are you on the floor? She asked, her voice full of concern. I quickly wiped my tears and locked my phone. Nothing, sweetheart. I just tripped. She knelt beside me, helping me to my feet, but I could feel her eyes studying me. She suspects something's wrong, I thought. I forced a smile. Go get some rest, honey. I'm fine. She hesitated, then nodded and went upstairs. I waited until I heard her door close before unlocking my phone again. My heart pounded as I typed back to the unknown number. Me, who are you? What do you want from me? No response. I sat in silence for what felt like an eternity until my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the abandoned train station. Come alone. Bring no police. Or she dies. My breath hitched. This was a trap, but I had no choice. My real daughter's life was at stake. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the moon, wondering how my life had spiraled into this nightmare. 40 years of love, sacrifice, and motherhood, only to find out that my baby had been stolen and was now in danger. I thought about Linda. Was she behind this too? Or was someone else pulling the strings? As the hours crawled by, my mind wandered back to the hospital where it all began. The memory was clear. I was exhausted, barely conscious, and Linda was there, smiling as she took my newborn to be cleaned. I remembered the warmth of her hug when she returned the baby to me. I trusted her completely. But what if that wasn't my baby she handed back? By the time dawn broke, I had made up my mind. I would go to the train station, but not empty-handed. I needed something, proof, protection, anything. I opened an old wooden box in my closet where I kept my late husband's revolver. My hands shook as I held it, but I knew I had to take it with me. At exactly 10 a.m., I arrived at the abandoned station. The air was heavy with the smell of rust and decay. The platform was empty, silent except for the distant caw of crows. My heart hammered in my chest as I stepped forward. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing. A figure emerged from the shadows. It wasn't Linda. It was a man, tall, wearing a black hoodie and a mask that covered half his face. "You came," he said, his voice deep and chilling. "Where is she?" I demanded, my voice cracking. He chuckled. "Safe. For now. But that depends on you." I took a step closer, gripping the revolver in my pocket. "What do you want from me?" The man tilted his head. "The truth isn't free, Grandma. Someone paid a lot to keep this buried. If you keep digging, she dies." My heart pounded. "Who paid you? Was it Linda?" He laughed darkly. "Linda? She was just a pawn. This goes higher than you think. The baby switch wasn't random. You were never supposed to find out." My knees trembled. "Tell me where she is." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Find the woman in the photograph frame. She knows everything. But be careful, she's watching you too." Before I could respond, he turned and ran into the shadows. I pulled out the revolver, but by the time I aimed, he was gone. I stood there shaking, my breath ragged. I had more questions than answers. When I got back to my car, another message buzzed on my phone. It was the same unknown number. "Unknown number. You have until midnight tomorrow. Fail, and you'll never see her again." My hands clenched around the steering wheel. I was running out of time. I drove straight to the address Linda once mentioned years ago, her old cabin near the woods. Maybe, just maybe, I could find something there. The cabin was abandoned, dust covering every surface, but as I searched the drawers, I found an old envelope labeled with my name. Inside were hospital documents, a photo of me holding my baby in the delivery room, and another photo, this one of a young woman who looked exactly like the girl in the threatening text. On the back, a message in Linda's handwriting. "I kept her safe, until they found out. Now you must." My heart stopped. Before I could process it, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there she was, my real daughter, standing in the doorway, eyes wide with fear. "Mom," she whispered. Before I could answer, a gunshot rang out from the trees. The window shattered, and she screamed. The sound of the gunshot ripped through the cabin like thunder. I didn't think. I just grabbed my real daughter and pulled her to the ground. Glass rained down around us, and the smell of gunpowder filled the air. "Stay down," I yelled, my heart pounding in my chest. Another shot shattered the wooden frame of the door. Whoever was out there wasn't just trying to scare us, they wanted us dead. I crawled toward the old fireplace where my late husband used to keep a shotgun. By some miracle, it was still there. My hands shook as I loaded it, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Mom, what's happening? Who are these people?" the young woman cried, her voice trembling. I looked at her, her eyes, her face, and in that instant I knew she was mine. Blood or not, a mother knows. "We'll talk later," I said, gripping the gun tightly. "Right now, we need to get out alive." I peeked through the broken window. A masked figure moved between the trees, rifle in hand. This wasn't random. This was an assassination. Someone didn't want the truth to come out. "Stay behind me," I whispered. We crawled to the back door, moving as quietly as we could. My heart thudded with every step, the floorboards creaking beneath us. Just as I opened the door, a voice shouted from outside. "Don't even think about it, Grandma." I froze. The man from the train station. He stepped out from the shadows, gun aimed straight at my head. "Where do you think you're going?" he sneered. I raised my shotgun, but he laughed. "You're not fast enough to pull that trigger, old lady. Hand it over." My real daughter clutched my arm, trembling. "Please don't hurt her," she begged. He grinned under his mask. "Oh, I won't, as long as you come with me quietly." My mind raced. If he took her, I'd lose her all over again. I had to act. Suddenly, a car engine roared to life outside. Headlights flooded the yard, blinding the gunman. A figure jumped out, and to my shock, it was the daughter I had raised for 40 years. "Mom, get down!" she screamed. She rammed the car forward, forcing the gunman to dive out of the way. I seized the moment, firing the shotgun. The blast echoed through the woods, and the man cried out, dropping his weapon as he fell to the ground. "Run!" I yelled. The three of us sprinted to the car, bullets whizzing past us as another shooter joined in from the trees. My raised daughter floored the gas, and we sped off, dirt spraying behind us. Inside the car, my hands were shaking uncontrollably. My two daughters, one I raised, one I just met, sat in silence, their faces pale with fear. "What is going on, Mom?" the girl I raised finally asked, tears in her eyes. I gripped the dashboard, catching my breath. "You both need to know the truth. But first, we need to get somewhere safe." We drove for hours, not stopping until we reached an old motel on the outskirts of town. The parking lot was empty, the neon sign flickering weakly. Inside, the smell of mildew clung to the air, but it was shelter. Once the door was locked, I finally turned to them. "I have to tell you something," I said, my voice cracking. 40 years ago, at the hospital, someone switched my baby at birth. I looked at the girl I raised. "You're not my biological daughter." "And you," I turned to the one we had rescued. "You are." The room fell silent. The girl I raised covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. You're saying I'm not your daughter?" I grabbed her hand. "You are my daughter in every way that matters. I love you. Nothing will ever change that." She sobbed, clinging to me. "I don't care about DNA. You're my mom." My real daughter watched us with wide eyes. "I don't understand. Why would someone do this to us?" I swallowed hard. "Because someone wanted to destroy me. And I think Linda was just the beginning. There's someone bigger behind this." Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "You can't hide. Both of them belong to us. You have until sunrise to hand them over." My blood ran cold. "They're not going to stop," I whispered. Suddenly, the motel lights flickered. Then the power went out completely. The room plunged into darkness. My daughters clung to me, their breaths trembling. From outside, we heard footsteps approaching. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. I reached for the shotgun. My hands were steady this time. Whoever was out there had just made the biggest mistake of their life. The doorknob turned. The doorknob rattled violently, and my grip on the shotgun tightened. My daughters clung to each other, their breaths sharp and shallow. The pounding of my heart was so loud, it drowned out every other sound. Think, I told myself. Whoever was outside wasn't here for a friendly chat. The door burst open with a loud crack, splinters flying across the room. A man in black stormed in, gun raised. Without hesitation, I fired the shotgun. The blast threw him backward into the hallway, his weapon clattering to the floor. "Move!"
Now.
I yelled, dragging my daughters toward the bathroom. We barricaded the door with the motel's flimsy wooden chair. The man groaned outside, and I knew he wasn't dead. My real daughter was shaking violently. "Mom, what's happening? Why are they after us?" I took a deep breath, even as fear clawed at me. Because someone doesn't want the truth to come out.
They're scared of what I know.
My raised daughter's voice cracked. "Then we need to call the police." "I already tried," I said bitterly. "When I called earlier, the line cut off. Whoever's behind this, they have connections. This isn't just some random attack." We heard footsteps, more than one, approaching the room. The attackers weren't giving up. I glanced at the tiny bathroom window. It was small, but it might be our only chance. "Climb out," I ordered.
Now.
My real daughter hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you."
Go.
One by one, they squeezed through the window, landing in the back alley. I followed last, barely managing to fit. Just as my feet hit the ground, gunfire erupted inside the room. The chair we had used to block the door was splintered to pieces. We ran. The night air bit at my face as we dashed through the alley, weaving between dumpsters and broken fences. My chest burned, but I didn't stop. Not when my daughters' lives were on the line. Finally, we reached the street where my car was parked. I shoved them inside and sped off, tires screeching against the pavement. We drove in silence, our breaths heavy. My mind raced. We can't keep running forever. I need to find out who's behind this. The answer came sooner than I expected. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video call from the unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. The screen lit up with a face I hadn't seen in decades, a face I never expected to see again. It was Linda. But she wasn't alone. Standing behind her was a man I recognized instantly, the former head doctor from the hospital where my baby was born. "You finally figured it out," Linda said, her voice dripping with malice.
"But it's too late. Where are you?"
I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. "Why are you doing this?" The doctor stepped forward, his expression cold. "Because, Mrs. Whitaker, the baby switch wasn't an accident. It was an experiment." My heart stopped. "Experiment?" Linda smiled cruelly. "We wanted to see what happens when a child is raised outside their bloodline, stripped of their inheritance, their true identity. You were the perfect candidate, trusting, emotional, easy to manipulate." Tears streamed down my face. "You destroyed my life for an experiment?" The doctor's voice was chillingly calm. "And now, to keep our secret safe, both girls must disappear." The screen went black. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel. "They're playing with us like we're pawns." My daughters were silent, fear etched across their faces. I took a sharp turn, heading toward the only place I knew we might be safe, the old farmhouse where my late husband grew up. It was secluded, off the grid. If we could hide there, I'd have time to plan our next move. When we arrived, the farmhouse creaked under the weight of the years, but it stood strong. I led the girls inside, bolting the door behind us. As we sat around the dusty table, I finally had a moment to breathe. I looked at both of them, my voice firm. They're not going to stop until they get what they want. But they made one mistake. My real daughter's eyes widened. "What mistake?" I gritted my teeth. "They underestimated a mother's love." Before I could say more, headlights cut across the window. A car had pulled up outside. My heart sank. Slowly, the front door handle turned. We all froze as the door creaked open, and standing there, framed by the moonlight, was someone I never expected to see. It was my late husband's brother, a man who had vanished from our lives decades ago. He stepped inside, his face shadowed. "They told me you'd come here," he said slowly. "And they told me to bring you back, dead or alive." My breath caught in my throat. The man standing in the doorway, the brother of my late husband, Edward, had aged, but his eyes were the same cold blue I remembered. There was no warmth, no family in them. Only calculation. "Edward," I whispered, taking a step back, shielding both of my daughters behind me.
"Why are you here?"
He closed the door slowly, the lock clicking into place. "Because they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They promised me a fortune if I delivered you, and both of them." My real daughter gasped.
"You're with them."
He smirked. "Oh, sweetheart, I've been with them from the beginning." My head spun.
"From the beginning?"
"You knew about the switch." Edward's smile widened. "Not only did I know, I helped arrange it. You see, the hospital experiment wasn't just about science. It was about power, inheritance, and control. Your daughter, your real daughter, was never supposed to have the life you wanted for her. I made sure of that." Rage boiled in my veins.
"You're a monster."
He shrugged. "Call me whatever you want.
I'm here to finish this."
Before I could react, he pulled a pistol from his coat. My daughters screamed. I raised the shotgun and aimed it squarely at his chest. We stood there, locked in a deadly standoff. "Put it down, Mary," he said calmly, "or I'll put you down first." "I don't think so," I hissed, my hands steady despite my pounding heart. "You took everything from me once. Not this time." For a long moment, no one moved. The air was thick with tension. Then Edward smirked again. "You always were stubborn," he said. "Fine. Let's make this interesting." He lowered his gun slightly, not out of mercy, but as a predator toying with its prey. "You have until dawn to hand over the girls. If you don't, they'll send an entire team to burn this place down with all of you inside." My real daughter trembled. "Mom, what do we do?" I kept my eyes on Edward. "You leave," I said coldly. "Tell them whatever you want. But if you come back, I swear I'll bury you myself." Edward chuckled, but I could see a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. "You're bluffing." I cocked the shotgun.
"Try me."
For a moment, it felt like time froze. Then he stepped back, opening the door. "You have guts, Mary. I'll give you that. But guts won't save you." He walked out into the night, his voice echoing as he left.
"You have until dawn."
The door closed, and silence returned, broken only by the sound of my daughters sobbing softly. I set the shotgun on the table and knelt beside them. "Listen to me. We don't have much time.
We need to prepare."
The girl I raised wiped her tears.
"Prepare for what?"
I looked at both of them, my voice low and fierce. "For war." We spent the next hours barricading the farmhouse, moving furniture against the doors and windows, setting traps using whatever we could find, rusty nails, broken glass, even old farm tools. I loaded every bullet I had left, my mind sharp and focused. As we worked, I explained everything to them. The hospital conspiracy, Linda's betrayal, the doctor's experiment, and Edward's role in it all. My real daughter's face hardened. "They stole my entire life. They used me like some lab rat." "They used all of us," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "But they underestimated what a mother will do to protect her children." The night dragged on, the darkness outside thick as tar. Around 3 a.m., I spotted movement in the trees, shadows darting between the branches. My chest tightened. "They're here," I whispered. Suddenly, a flash of light exploded outside, the glow of torches and headlights. Dozens of men emerged from the woods, armed and advancing toward the farmhouse. "They're surrounding us," my raised daughter cried. I pulled them both close. Stay behind me. No matter what happens, stay together. The attackers shouted orders, their voices cold and commanding. Then, with a crash, they rammed against the front door. The traps went off, nails scattered, glass sliced, a man screamed in pain. But more of them kept coming. Gunfire erupted. The windows shattered as bullets ripped through the walls. I fired back, hitting one of the masked men. My daughters screamed but stayed low. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity. The farmhouse walls were splintering, the air filled with smoke and chaos. Then, through the madness, I saw him, Edward, leading the charge with a cruel smile. "You can't win, Mary," he shouted over the gunfire. I aimed the shotgun at him. "Watch me." I pulled the trigger. The blast threw him to the ground. He clutched his chest, gasping, before collapsing motionless. The other men hesitated, seeing their leader fall. I fired again, forcing them to retreat into the darkness. One by one, they vanished back into the trees. The silence that followed was deafening. I dropped to my knees, exhausted, the shotgun slipping from my hands. My daughters rushed to me, tears streaming down their faces. "We did it, Mom," my real daughter whispered. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. As dawn broke, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from the unknown number. "You think this ends with Edward? You've only scratched the surface. The real mastermind is coming for you." I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. "They want a war?" I said, my voice cold.
Then they'll get one.
And just as I said that, a black helicopter appeared in the sky, circling above the farmhouse like a vulture. The helicopter's blades chopped the early morning air, the deafening roar making the farmhouse walls tremble. Dust swirled around us as my daughters and I crouched near the window, hearts pounding. "They found us," my raised daughter whispered, gripping my arm so tightly it hurt. I stared at the black helicopter hovering above the trees, its searchlight sweeping across the yard. This wasn't just a warning. This was a strike. "Get down," I ordered, pulling them away from the window. The beam of light moved back and forth, searching like an eye hungry for prey. Through the glass, I saw ropes drop from the side of the helicopter. Figures in black tactical gear slid down, guns strapped to their bodies. This wasn't a random gang. This was a professional kill squad. My heart raced. "They're coming in. We have to move now." We ran to the back of the farmhouse, but the heavy thud of boots on the roof made me freeze. They were everywhere. Suddenly, the front door was blasted open with an explosion, splinters flying through the air. My daughters screamed. I pushed them toward the cellar door. "Go.
Hide in the cellar and don't come out unless I tell you."
My real daughter shook her head, tears streaming. "Mom, no. You can't fight them alone." "I've fought for you all my life," I said, gripping her face with both hands. "This is no different. Go." Reluctantly, they slipped into the cellar as I pulled the trapdoor shut and shoved an old cabinet over it. The masked soldiers stormed in, rifles raised. I grabbed my shotgun, my fingers trembling but determined. "Drop the weapon, old lady," one of them barked. I didn't drop it. I fired. The blast threw one of them back, crashing into a wall. Chaos erupted. Bullets tore through the furniture as I dove behind the kitchen counter, firing again and again. The air smelled of gunpowder and fear. I could hear my daughters crying softly under the floorboards, and that gave me strength. Then, amid the chaos, a voice rang out, a voice I recognized instantly.
"Enough."
The soldiers stopped firing. My heart froze. From the smoke, a tall figure stepped into the farmhouse. He removed his helmet, and my knees almost buckled. It was the doctor, the very man who delivered my baby, who orchestrated the switch. Dr. Howard. He looked older but still carried that same cold authority.
"Mary," he said calmly, as if we were old friends.
You've caused quite a mess. I raised my shotgun. You ruined my life. You stole my child. Why? He smirked. Because you were the perfect subject. We needed someone strong yet vulnerable, someone we could manipulate. And Linda, well, she played her part beautifully. My voice trembled with rage. You're sick. Howard stepped closer, unbothered by the gun in my hands. You have 2 daughters now, don't you? One by blood, one by love. That makes you dangerous to us.
You'll fight to the end, and I can't allow that.
I tightened my grip.
You're damn right I'll fight.
Before I could fire, a gunshot rang out, but it wasn't mine. The bullet ripped through the counter beside me, sending shards of wood flying. I turned to see Linda standing behind Howard, holding a rifle. Her eyes locked on me with something I couldn't read, anger, guilt, or both.
Mary, she said, her voice shaking.
Put the gun down. I glared at her. After everything you've done, you expect me to listen to you? Howard smirked.
Linda, finish it.
She hesitated. Her hands trembled. Do it, he barked. For a moment, time stood still. Linda's eyes filled with tears.
Then she turned the rifle and aimed it at Howard.
You ruined everything, she hissed, her voice breaking. You used me. Before Howard could react, she fired. The bullet struck him in the chest, and he fell to the floor, gasping. The soldiers shouted in confusion, some raising their weapons, but Linda yelled, Stand down!
This ends now.
They hesitated. Howard's blood spread across the floor as he choked out, You'll never stop us. And then he went still. The soldiers lowered their guns and slowly backed away, retreating out of the farmhouse. The helicopter lifted off, disappearing into the rising sun. The silence afterward was unbearable. Linda dropped the rifle and fell to her knees, sobbing. Mary, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I kept my gun on her, my chest heaving. You stole my baby. You destroyed my life.
Why should I forgive you?
She looked up at me with broken eyes. Because I can help you. There's someone else. Someone worse. Howard wasn't the mastermind. He was just the face of it. The real power, the one who ordered all of this, is still out there. My heart pounded. Who? Linda's lips trembled. Someone you know. Someone close.
And they're coming for you.
Before she could say more, a sharp crack echoed. A single bullet struck her from outside, and she collapsed, lifeless. I spun around, but whoever fired the shot was gone. The cellar door burst open. My daughters ran to me, clinging to my arms, sobbing. She's gone, I whispered, staring at Linda's body. But she was telling the truth. The real enemy is still out there. In the distance, I heard the sound of another helicopter approaching. They're not finished, I said, my voice cold as steel. Not by a long shot. I looked at my daughters, one by blood, one by love, and knew what I had to do. We're taking this fight to them. The second helicopter swooped lower, its spotlight blinding us.
Through the glare, I saw a figure leaning out the side, a figure with a familiar face.
My breath caught. It was my raised daughter's biological mother. She was alive, and she was with them. The helicopter's spotlight seared my eyes, forcing me to shield my face. My daughters clung to me, trembling as the deafening roar filled the sky. The figure leaning out wasn't just anyone. It was a woman with the same hair, the same sharp chin as the daughter I had raised for 40 years. Her voice crackled through a loudspeaker, cold and commanding. Mary, hand over both girls now, and you might live to see another sunrise. My raised daughter froze, her mouth falling open. Mom, who is that? I swallowed hard, my voice breaking. She's your biological mother. Her eyes widened, confusion and fear swirling together. My real mother? The woman's voice cut through the air again. You were never hers to keep.
You belong to me.
Rage surged inside me. You're not taking her, I muttered under my breath, my fists tightening around the shotgun. The helicopter lowered, its wind whipping the trees violently. Soldiers rappelled down ropes, forming a perimeter around the farmhouse. Their boots crunched against the gravel like a death march. My real daughter grabbed my arm. Mom, we can't fight them all. I turned to both of them, my heart pounding. We don't have to fight them head-on. We have to outsmart them. Through the trees, I spotted the old underground tunnel my late husband had built decades ago for emergencies. Few people knew it existed. Follow me, I whispered, pulling them toward the back of the farmhouse while the soldiers advanced. We slipped through the trapdoor behind the fireplace, crawling through the narrow tunnel as the smell of damp earth filled my lungs. Above us, I heard boots stomping, furniture crashing, and the soldiers shouting orders. Search every room. Don't let them escape. My daughter's breaths were quick and shaky, but we kept moving until we reached the end of the tunnel, which opened into the thick woods. We emerged silently, crouching among the trees. The helicopter's spotlight swept past us, searching. Then, a voice echoed through the woods, closer this time. Mary! You can't run forever.
Give them to me, and I'll spare your life.
I peeked through the branches. The woman was there now, on the ground, flanked by soldiers. She was tall, blonde, and her eyes were ice, so much like my raised daughter's. My daughter's lips trembled. She looks like me. I pulled her close. She may have given you life, but she doesn't get to take you from me. Not now, not ever. The woman stepped forward, scanning the trees. Do you know why we switched them, Mary? She called out.
Because I was meant to raise her in wealth and power, and you were meant to be nothing more than a footnote in history.
Her words sliced through me, but they also ignited something fierce inside. I raised my shotgun, aimed through the leaves, and fired. The blast echoed through the woods, sending birds scattering into the dawn sky. One of her soldiers dropped to the ground. Chaos erupted as the others returned fire, bullets whizzing past us. Run! I yelled. We bolted deeper into the forest, branches whipping against our faces. The soldiers chased, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. My lungs burned, but I kept pushing, knowing that stopping meant death. Suddenly, we stumbled into an abandoned hunting cabin. It was small and falling apart, but it was cover. I pushed my daughters inside and bolted the door. For a moment, we caught our breath in the dusty silence. My raised daughter looked at me, her eyes wet. Mom, if she's my real mother, why is she doing this? I cupped her face. Because she doesn't understand what being a mother means. It's not about blood. It's about love. Before she could respond, the cabin walls rattled with gunfire. Bullets tore through the wood. The soldiers were outside, surrounding us. Then, her voice came again, calm and cold. Mary, open the door. If you don't, I'll burn this place down with all of you inside. I looked around the cabin desperately. There was an old propane tank near the stove and a box of matches on the counter. An idea formed in my mind. Risky, maybe deadly, but our only chance. I whispered to my daughters, when I say run, you run through the back window and don't stop. No, Mom, what are you going to do? My real daughter cried. I'm going to make sure they never follow us again, I said, my voice steady. Tears streamed down their faces, but they nodded. The woman outside shouted, This is your last chance, Mary. I grabbed the propane tank, yanked the hose, and tossed it near the door. With trembling hands, I struck a match. Now, run! I screamed. My daughters climbed through the back window just as the door was kicked open. Soldiers rushed inside, and I threw the lit match. The explosion ripped through the cabin, flames bursting into the sky. The blast knocked me backward, heat scorching my skin. The soldiers screamed as fire consumed the room. I crawled out through the window, coughing, my body shaking from the force of the explosion. My daughters grabbed me, pulling me into the trees. Behind us, the cabin burned like a beacon, smoke curling into the morning sky. The helicopter circled, but it was forced to pull back from the flames. We ran until our legs gave out, collapsing under a fallen tree. The forest was quiet again, except for the crackle of the distant fire. My daughters clung to me, sobbing. I held them close, whispering, "It's over. For now." But as the sun rose, a figure stepped out from behind a tree. It wasn't the soldiers. It wasn't the woman. It was a man in a tailored suit, calm and composed, as if he had been waiting for this moment. He smiled coldly. "Mary, you've been very difficult to deal with. I think it's time we end this once and for all." My blood ran cold. He pulled out a badge, government issued. "I'm the one who gave the orders 40 years ago," he said. "And now, I'm here to finish what I started." The man's voice was calm, almost soothing, but his words were laced with venom. My daughters clutched me tighter as he stepped closer, the badge glinting in the rising sunlight. You ordered this?" I hissed, my voice trembling with rage. He smiled faintly. "Yes, Mary." The baby switch was part of a classified program. We studied nature versus nurture using real children. You and your daughters were our most valuable subjects. My real daughter's voice cracked. "You're sick. You ruined our lives for some experiment." The man's cold eyes shifted to her. "On the contrary, dear, you were raised strong. Everything you are today is because of us." Rage surged through me, overpowering my fear. "You think you can just erase what you've done?" He stepped closer, unfazed by my anger. "Mary, we're not here to erase anything. We're here to tie up loose ends. You, your daughters, this entire mess, it ends today." I tightened my grip on the shotgun, raising it toward his chest. "Not if I end it first." He chuckled softly. "You won't shoot me. You're a mother, not a killer." Before I could answer, movement stirred in the shadows behind him. Someone was watching. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the figure step forward. It was Linda's daughter, one I had never met, a young woman with fierce eyes and a gun in her hand. She spoke sharply, aiming at the man. "Step away from them." The man didn't flinch. "Ah, the traitor's child. You shouldn't be here." "I'm here to finish what my mother started," she snapped. For the first time, he looked unsettled. "You don't understand the power you're interfering with." Linda's daughter smirked. "Power doesn't scare me, but losing what's left of my family does." The standoff was tense. I kept my shotgun trained on him, while she held her pistol steady. The man's soldiers were nowhere in sight. Either they had pulled back or he had come alone, confident he could control the situation. "You're cornered," I said. "Call off whatever you're planning, or I swear." He interrupted me with a slow clap. "Mary, you really think this ends with me? I'm just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Even if you kill me, the program lives on." I hesitated. He wasn't bluffing. But Linda's daughter stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Then we burn the whole puzzle down." She fired. The shot hit his shoulder, spinning him to the ground. He groaned, clutching the wound, but his expression was still disturbingly calm. "You've only delayed the inevitable," he wheezed. "They'll keep coming." I walked over, my shotgun aimed at his head. "Who are they? Who's behind this?" He grinned through the pain.
You'll meet them soon enough.
Before I could demand more, he pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed it. A loud beeping filled the air. Linda's daughter's eyes widened. It's a tracker. He just called reinforcements. I grabbed my daughters. We have to move.
Now.
We fled deeper into the forest, the beeping growing fainter as we put distance between ourselves and the man. Behind us, I could hear him laughing weakly, his voice echoing like a curse. You can't run forever, Mary.
They'll never stop hunting you.
We didn't stop running until we reached an old ranger station on the edge of the woods. The building was deserted, but it gave us a moment to catch our breath. Inside, I checked my daughters for injuries. They were shaken but unharmed. Linda's daughter kept watch by the window, her gun never leaving her hand. Why are you helping us? I asked her. She looked at me, her eyes softening. Because my mother died trying to make things right. She told me if I ever found you, I was to protect you. This, she gestured toward the chaos outside, this is bigger than all of us. My real daughter spoke up, her voice trembling but determined. Then we have to fight back. Not just run. We have to stop them. I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. You're right. But to stop them, we need proof, documents, names, something we can use to expose them. Linda's daughter smirked. I know where to find it. My mother kept files, records of everything. But they're stored in a secure facility, and it's not going to be easy to get in.
Where is it?
I asked. She hesitated. It's in Washington, D.C. That's where the heart of this program beats. The thought of going straight into enemy territory made my stomach churn, but I knew we had no choice. Before we could plan further, a loud hum filled the air. I looked out the window and froze. 3 black SUVs were speeding up the dirt road toward the ranger station. Behind them, another helicopter loomed in the sky. They found us, Linda's daughter said, cocking her gun. I grabbed my daughters, my voice fierce.
Then we make our stand here.
The vehicles screeched to a halt, soldiers pouring out like a swarm of locusts. The helicopter's searchlight cut across the station. This is it, I said, raising my shotgun. No more running. The soldiers advanced, weapons ready. The doors rattled as they prepared to storm the building. Then, from the trees behind them, a series of explosions erupted, smoke and fire filling the air. The soldiers scattered in confusion. Out of the smoke, a group of masked vigilantes emerged, armed and moving fast. They fought with precision, taking down the soldiers one by one. Who the hell are they? My raised daughter gasped. Linda's daughter smiled faintly. Allies. The leader of the vigilantes stepped into the light, pulling off his mask. My heart nearly stopped. It was my late husband's best friend, a man I thought had died years ago.
Mary, he said, his voice rough but steady, you're not alone anymore.
We're taking this fight to them. The battlefield outside turned into chaos, flames lighting the night sky. I gripped my daughter's hands, determination surging through me. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And as the leader of the vigilantes gave me a nod, he said words that sent chills down my spine. The mastermind is expecting you in Washington. And he's not who you think. Washington, D.C. loomed on the horizon, its skyline cutting through the early morning fog. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every mile we drove toward the city felt like stepping deeper into the lion's den. The vigilantes had escorted us through back roads, avoiding detection. My daughters sat quietly in the back seat, exhaustion on their faces, but their eyes burned with the same fire I felt in my chest. Linda's daughter rode with us too, her gun resting on her lap. The leader of the vigilantes, John, my late husband's best friend, spoke from the passenger seat. Mary, once we're inside their headquarters, there's no turning back. They'll throw everything at us to keep their secrets hidden. I nodded, my jaw set. Then we hit them where it hurts the most. He gave me a faint smile.
That's the Mary the first remember.
By the time we reached the city, the sun had fully risen, casting long shadows over the tall glass building that housed the program's headquarters. It looked like any corporate tower, but beneath its polished exterior was the heart of the nightmare that had haunted me for decades. We parked in an underground garage and moved in silence. John handed me a small earpiece. Stay on my signal. Once we breached the security, head straight to the control room on the top floor. That's where the files are stored. That's where the mastermind will be. My daughters gripped my hands tightly. Be careful, Mom, my raised daughter whispered. I'll protect you both, I said, my voice steady. We moved as a unit, slipping past the first layer of security thanks to John's contacts. But as soon as we stepped into the elevator, alarms blared. Red lights flashed, and a robotic voice echoed through the building. Security breach. Initiate lockdown. The elevator jolted to a stop. Soldiers stormed the hallway above us. They were waiting for us, John growled. The firefight erupted as soon as the doors opened. The vigilantes exchanged gunfire with the soldiers while I shielded my daughters, leading them down a side corridor. Bullets ricocheted off the walls as we ran. We pushed through doors, climbed stairs, and finally reached the top floor. It was eerily quiet compared to the chaos below. At the end of the hallway, a large office door stood ajar, golden light spilling from within. I stepped inside, my shotgun raised. The office was lavish, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And behind a massive desk sat the man I least expected to see. My breath caught. It was the president of the hospital board, a man I had seen smiling in countless charity events, the one who had signed the adoption papers for many families, including mine. He stood slowly, adjusting his suit. Mary, you finally made it. My voice trembled with fury. It was you all along. You're the mastermind. He smirked. Yes, every decision, every switch, every test, it was orchestrated by me. We built a generation of assets, children placed where we wanted them, raised to be useful to us. You were never supposed to uncover it. My real daughter stepped forward, her voice shaking. You destroyed my life. You stole me from my mother. The man chuckled coldly. You should be thanking me. Without me, you'd have grown up in obscurity. Obscurity. I spat. You turned our lives into experiments. He raised his hand. Enough. Hand over both girls. Mary. Walk away, and maybe I'll let you live out the rest of your days quietly. I aimed the shotgun at his chest. You have no idea who you're dealing with. His smile faded. You won't shoot. You're too sentimental. I took a step closer, my voice like steel. No, I'm a mother. And you messed with the wrong one. Before he could react, I fired. The blast knocked him back against the glass wall, shattering it. He stumbled, clutching his chest, and fell through the jagged window, plummeting into the city below. The alarms fell silent. The soldiers stopped fighting. The program's leader was dead. John rushed in, breathing hard. It's over. We've secured the building. I walked to the control panel and accessed the files. Everything, the experiments, the names, the evidence was there. I sent it to every major news outlet in the country with a single click. By the time the authorities arrived, the truth had spread like wildfire. The program was exposed. The world knew what they had done. As we stepped out of the building, the morning air felt lighter. Reporters swarmed the entrance, shouting questions, but I ignored them. My daughters were by my side, and that was all that mattered. We drove out of Washington as the sun rose higher, painting the sky with colors of hope. For the first time in 40 years, I felt free. My raised daughter squeezed my hand. Mom, what now? I smiled through tears. Now we live. Together. No more running. My real daughter leaned against me, whispering, "Thank you for finding me." I kissed her forehead. "I'll never let anyone take you away again." John drove us out of the city, the wind rushing through the open window. Behind us, the program lay in ruins. Ahead of us, a new life waited, one built on truth, love, and survival. As the road stretched endlessly before us, I looked back at the skyline one last time and whispered to myself, "They thought they could break me, but they forgot. Nothing is stronger than a mother's love." And with that, our war was finally over. Broken Heart sparkles if this story touched your heart, made you hold your breath, and reminded you of the strength hidden inside every mother. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice matters, and your story does too.